evening. Keeps up the cash. Gary B, the casual comic guy here, and welcome back to another episode of the 1011. Joining me, as always, on a Tuesday evening, we have my co-host with the fattest stacks of comics in the land, Rob. How you doing tonight, sir?
I'm super.
And of course, our guest of the evening is none other than Phil from Phil's Treehouse.
Hey, I'm super too.
Woohoo!
How you doing this evening, Phil?
Are you
I'm
super
doing
2
wonderful.
TWO or TOO?
How about super squared?
Ooh, nice.
And we are going to we're going to get things kicking in a second. But Steve, as I like to begin all of these, I like for the guests to give their little 2-minute pitch on who they are and what their channel's about. So we're going to do that. We're going to say hi to the chat, and then we're going to come back to you for your very first book.
Okay. My name is Phil. I run a channel called Phil's Treehouse. That channel is relatively new. Although I took a year off from YouTube, and before was called the Comic Talk Weekly, which I think the URL still shows. Anyway, I am from the mid-Michigan area. I've been collecting since about 1978, 79, as I'll share some stuff. And I guess that's it. We were talking backstage, and I thoroughly agree. The YouTube show scene has become like my new social life, so it's really nice to be here with you fine gentlemen.
It's our new
only
pub.
seen before.
We all show up, hang out together, have conversations, maybe have a drink while we're at it.
Oh, darn.
Right, Joe? I see you there, Joe.
And the best thing too is we don't have to leave our homes to do it.
Yes, yes. I'm not
Can't
worried.
get
That's that side of getting older. I don't know what is. Right? I get to do all that and not leave the house. Sold.
Yes.
Pants.
Sign
What
me
are
up.
pants?
All right. First up in the chat, as always, we have Las Cruces. Good evening, sir. How you doing, James? Nice to see you, buddy. Then we have Phil checking in and saying hi. We have Steve White, who is coming up August 1st on the 1011. We have Joe getting a little schnickered over there. How you doing, Joe? Had a lovely time with Joe and Matt last weekend when we went to the Empire Comic Fest. So a great little festival we have here. It happens like 3 times a year, and it's just all comic vendors, straight comics.
And where is that?
Nice. Huh?
And where is that?
In Rochester, New York.
That's nice. Sometimes you go to a con and comics are hard to find.
Yeah, this is about the comics.
Yeah. Neat.
All right, so we have Rob saying greetings and salutations. The Batman, how you doing tonight? Nice to see you. Paul's here. Good evening, Paul. Nice to see you, sir. Thank you for checking in. All right, and as people keep popping in, the notifications are going out. It was a great time, Joe. Absolutely. I'm still talking about it to everybody. And I got my comic book crowd mug from Joe.
Nice.
So it goes. You put that right next to my Rob Fat Stax mug.
Do you have a collection of mugs?
I love mugs, so I got a couple.
Okay, I do too. I had to get rid of a bit.
Yeah, I'm a coffee mug guy. I love them. I don't use them all for coffee. Sometimes I just hold things in them.
Oh yeah. Oh, they're multi-purpose for sure.
One of my favorite ones is a Golden Girls one, but I gave that one to my dad, but I didn't want to part with it.
Was it like authorized from, I don't know, NBC or whoever?
Yeah, it was a real Golden Girls mug, and it was like in black and white, and it had their 4 faces. It was like the Mount Rushmore of the Golden Girls.
Oh, that's neat. That's clever.
Oh, but anyway, yes, double. It was a great time. Double trouble. Tina, good evening. Nice to see you. One of the nicest people we have in our community right there. Tina is awesome. And also a blue wrench everywhere you see her, because Tina keeps everyone in check.
Good for you, Tina.
Right. All right, so Phil, let's get back to you, man. So you've been collecting since 78.
Yeah.
So let's start getting into your books, and I hope you had a good time, a fun time picking them out, and I hope you didn't stress out too much.
I didn't stress out. It was if I did, it was a fun kind of stress. I don't know if you caught my Instagram, but I kind of documented kind of the experience of sorting through all my books, getting them in order, putting them back on a shelf in order. And I used you as my excuse to finally get that job done. I
did see. I liked a couple. You know what was funny, and I don't know if this is just because our age, Phil. So Phil and I were messaging each other back and forth, and then I finally figured out today that we weren't following each other.
Yes, I noticed the same thing. I'm sitting here watching you, but
I was like,
I
man,
don't have
what
you
a
on
faux
IG.
pas that is.
I don't know. It's in my opinion, it's more easy to keep up on folks on the YouTubes than on IG, where there's a million more people to keep up with, at least in my experience. So,
Right.
98% of them are just selling you something.
yes, well,
Right.
that's true too.
All right, so let's get to your first book, though, Steve. I'm really curious to see what you're going to pop out on us tonight.
So I'm curious, how many of the folks on your show start with their first comic? Is that a common
There's actually
theme?
been a
About
couple,
4 or 5.
Yeah, there's a few people who like to go to that route, whether that's their actual, or whether it's a replacement of their
And
actual.
I will never
Okay.
remember what my first comic was, but
Okay.
Really, you don't, Gary?
Well,
No.
then sidebar, did they have big boy restaurants in your area?
Ooh, yeah,
No.
Bob's Big Boy, the
And
home of value.
my big boy restaurant gave away
And
big boy
comics.
comics
Yeah.
to keep us
Wow.
kids quiet. And so that was my first experience with comics, though I don't remember any of that. I just know that they were in front of my face.
I also have some Buster Brown comics.
Oh, wow. From the shoe store?
Yeah.
Okay. That's a whole tangent, isn't it? When I was in 6th grade, this will date me. That was 1976. The movie.
I was also in 6th grade.
Really?
No.
So okay. I was gonna say. Usually.
No,
not
I was
many people
only
beat me.
I was 6 years old. I was born in 1970.
Okay. My father would not take me to go see the Edgar Rice Burroughs movie At the Earth's Core.
Oh.
Now in hindsight, I don't blame him, because that movie doesn't hold up, and probably didn't even hold up in the day. But I was in 6th grade and I loved the preview. So, but what he did do instead was buy me the paperback of At the Earth's Core by Edgar Rice Burroughs, and that turned me on. I was already reading, but that just threw gas on that fire, and I became an avid reader. And at the time, because of that movie, I suspect Ace Paperbacks, hey Rude, had reprinted or put back into publication every Edgar Rice Burroughs story there was. And for those of you who aren't old timers, Edgar Rice Burroughs started in the pulps. And so like even Tarzan might have gone across several months of magazines, but now here we are talking paperbacks where it's all collected. Anyway,
Right.
I read all 72 or 3 novels within the next 2 years. And then there was no more supply. I pretty much read everything there was to read from Ace Paperbacks.
I know what that's like.
And yeah, so in a way it's kind of sad because I wanted more. I read so many that my 7th grade teacher didn't believe that I was reading that much, because you could read books for extra credit, and I was turning in report after report after report, but she didn't believe it. Anyway, long story short, a year or 2 later, after I'd kind of said goodbye to Edgar Rice Burroughs, just in the grocery store, I was passing by the newsstand, and the words Edgar Rice Burroughs just leaped out at me. And I was like, oh my gosh. And it happened to be at the top of this comic book.
There you go.
From Marvel Comics. This is
Right.
John Carter, Warlord of Mars 23, came out in January of 79. So it was in 9th grade. By then I'd already read everything. So I had to pick it up. And I kept going back to that store because to the grocery store, because I didn't know where else to find these things in my area.
Right.
Turns out they were putting Tarzan, Lord of the Apes out at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So I discovered that. And little sidebar story. Now this is back in 79, and there was no internet. And so the only way that I knew of to find information on more comics was by the ads in the book. Where a lot of the retailers would publish actual lists of books and the prices and stuff, right? That was the only way. So that also became, until I discovered Overstreet, kind of a price guide in a way. But there were so many retailers in this and the issues that followed, you could just send away for their catalog. So I did. And that's kind of how I learned about comics, the breadth of comics. It was how
And that was the worst thing being a young kid in those days, right? You would get a book, it'd have a cliffhanger. You had no idea if you would find the next issue or not.
Yes, you're totally right. Which is why, thanks for the segue, I subscribed. You
Yeah.
know, they have those subscription forms in these books, and they might even still. I don't know. Do they? Do new comics have subscription
I
forms in them
don't
at
think
all?
so today, because you can do digital subscriptions.
Oh, that's
Is
true.
how they tend to do their delivery today. I
Okay.
don't know that you can actually subscribe to a paper version. I don't think it's cost effective for them to be
Mailing.
mailing them out.
Right.
And and the distribution, the way that distribution is set up today, I don't think that they're set up to do that.
It's
But
all through the warehouses to direct to retailers, right?
yeah,
And at best bookstores like
but
Barnes and Noble.
I know that in the '90s there was still doing subscriptions, because I remember I was still subscribing to a few books in the mid '90s.
Okay.
So
Now I recall. So I did subscribe to
if
this.
somebody knows, I'm sorry, if somebody knows in the chat that there's still subscriptions today to the major comics, I'm sure there might be some indies that still do it, but any of the major ones, let us know.
Yeah, and sometimes check the indica. I don't know if I'm saying that. The fine print, usually at the beginning or the end of a book, because sometimes they'll list subscription information there and nowhere else.
Right.
So anyway, I sent away for a subscription, and my memory was they came like wrapped in a brown wrapper, but it was open at the top and the bottom.
And folded in half.
Yes, depending on your mailman. So probably. So I got this next. And this was the very next issue. And in the letters page, it announced that this was the last issue. So I subscribed to the book, and I quickly learned in my comic book history that that's how cancellations work.
And just such great covers on those too.
Yes.
Did you ever go back and complete the run?
I did. In fact, probably everything I'm going to show you tonight, I've repurchased, because I've had several collecting periods, and then I would sell the collection or the important stuff, and not collect for a while. My current collection is from books. This is when I got back into it, 2011 onward. Two things happened in September. Miles came out, and the new 52 came out, September of 2011.
Yeah.
So, and coincidentally, my LCS, I won a raffle. I won the first issue of all 52 number ones.
Wow.
Yes, of the new 52. So I got to try the entire line for free.
I will say that despite what some people have said about the new 52, it did its job for some folks, which was the intent of getting some people back into comics or getting them in there. Before it, I really didn't read DC at all. Okay. And it was barely in comics. But when I started around that same time, my son was starting to do reading. I started getting into comics again, and the new 52 launched. So, sure enough, yeah, okay, I can pick up a Batman one, and as opposed to issue 700 or whatever, and not know what's been going on and stuff. And
it truly was a new starting point, right? It was ground zero for the line wide.
And there was still some references to history, but for the most part, you were able to get along just fine, because it was pretty well good new stuff, and so it did get people back in.
I'm not really a DC collector either. There's certain DC titles I collect, but they're more miniseries that I really love. Like, say, Camelot 3000 is one of my favorites. The old 8-issue Starfire from the 70s is one of my favorites, with a great Ernie Chan cover on the first issue and a bunch of incredible Mike Vosberg art. I love that 8-issue series, but that was during the implosion at DC. But everyone I hear, at least around me, when you bring up the new 52, it's talked about fondly. A lot of people really connected with some of those storylines in that period.
Especially Batman.
That was it wasn't the introduction, but that was when Scott Snyder really blew up. He had done like a 6-issue mini and some detectives.
They kicked off that Court of Owls stuff, and that was just crazy.
Yeah, Joe saying he enjoyed the new 52, especially the Superman, Wonder Woman.
Yeah, that was some pretty crazy
was
stuff.
Was that Rucka? Was Wonder Woman doing?
Greg Rucka?
Was he writing Wonder Woman? I should say too. I'm apt to remember writers of books than artists of books.
And I think, Rob, that's where your favorite Batwoman came out. Cassandra Cain.
No. Cassandra Cain had a Batgirl run long before the new 52.
Oh, see, I thought she started with the new 52.
Matter of fact, the very first volume 1, Batgirl Volume 1, the very first solo Batgirl title was a Cassandra Cain as Batgirl. Barbara Gordon didn't have her own Batgirl title till after. There was the new 52 introduced Barbara Gordon, a younger hipper Barbara Gordon in the newer kind of costume and stuff and running around. It was actually kind of brought her back after she had been shot and was Oracle. But they brought Barbara Gordon back in the New 52 as Batgirl.
I remember that TV series, Birds of Prey. It was good, cheesy fun.
I kind of liked that. I was sad to see
Me too. It was good.
And
number 2, Phil.
I kind of miss the old Witchblade TV show too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I'm having high CPU usage on this, and it'll go down, but I think I'm getting a virus scan. So just a little warning.
It's just Gary.
Okay. All right. Also, quick side note. I think this is maybe the only time this has ever happened. When John Carter got canceled, a couple months later, after a fan campaign, letter writing campaign, they brought him back. It even says he's back.
And did your subscription start up again?
Yep, and they hadn't even refunded me. It was that long, and there was only one more issue, and this is the last one. So it lasted 2 or 3 more issues.
Now, is that your number 2, or was that all hooked to number 1?
That's all hooked to number 1.
Okay,
and I can accelerate here. So speaking
you're good.
Speaking of going through all the ads, so it was Edgar Rice Burroughs that brought me to comics. I was reading John Carter, I was reading Tarzan, but I'm just looking at the ads. Wow, and I'm just excited. What is this comic thing, right? So not only was it the story and the art that I bought it for, but I'm looking at the ads, I'm looking at the letter columns, I'm looking at the bullpen bulletins, and I'm just kind of drinking in this new medium.
You can't figure out why you want an Evel Knievel stunt cycle so bad.
Yes, or the little seahorses.
Or Spalding basketball.
Yes. You're giving me ideas for trivia questions, for Treehouse trivia. Well, I glammed onto Spider-Man, probably like a million other people.
Like all of us did.
Yeah, right. So, and also at the same time, I discovered that there were indeed 2 local comic shops in my area. And when I say that, back in the early days, I didn't have a driver's license yet. There wasn't internet yet. So unless I wanted to order out of a catalog, I rode my bike 2 miles into the very, very fringe of my town, where I caught a bus and then took a 45-minute bus ride to the other side of town to get to my comic shop.
Wow.
Nice.
So I didn't go very often. And if there was such a thing as a pull list back then, I didn't know. I'm just kind of, but anyway, it was those trips into the comic shop. It was an all-day event for me. Those are some fond memories. So I glammed onto Spider-Man pretty early on. But I remember one series that I particularly liked, especially was Marvel Team Up. And this is the first issue. This is the first back issue I ever bought. I did buy it mail order. Hey, K-Pop and Roscoe and Achronic. But I knew I wanted this one because I was reading the current issues at the time. Mm-hmm. And my store had, I don't know, older issues just on the rack. They weren't even selling them as back issues. But I also happened onto the Saturday Night Live issue of Marvel Team Up with Belushi and Aykroyd and Chevy Chase. And so that just made me kind of go, wow. But I thought Marvel Team Up was a really good superhero book to begin with, because every month you're meeting somebody new in the Marvel universe, right? He teams up with a superhero, a different hero every month.
And it's self-contained. So if you miss something, it's not a big deal. It's a complete story. You don't have to wait. You don't have to.
And in some of the other, well, there weren't many. There might have only been 1 or 2, Peter Parker and Amazing at the time. They would make reference to that month's appearance in Marvel Team Up as seen in. They would always make sure to.
I love Marvel, and whenever I see them cheap, I pick some up. They're so great. One of my all-time favorite stories was in Marvel Team Up, and that was with Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, and Xandu.
It's been so long, I don't remember.
It was such a good story. He was he was in love with this woman, and he was doing some magic in it, and he accidentally killed her, and he was trying to bring her back, and the Wanda Watum was in it, and it was all that crazy trippy art. It was I still go back and read it all the time. I love it.
That's neat. And I've just been recently saying, I don't know, I haven't been entertained by what's currently coming out. So I've been going back recently and rereading old favorites. So
I'm always rereading Bronze Age books. Like weekly.
And can I ask real quick, do you prefer them? Is it always like in single issue format or digitally or in a trade or
it's
Omni?
my floppies.
Okay, that's neat. So that's I don't know if that's controversial or not. So
he's got 3 or 4 copies. It's all right.
All right. I was gonna say, do you slab or do you not slab? So
Well, I have six boxes of slabs that say.
All right. Okay.
That's adorable, Gary.
See,
I know,
I have like
right?
I have like 3 slabs. I've never submitted anything. All the slabs I have were either I won them or I bought them that way. So
yeah. I slab, but for all all the Conan ones that I have slabbed, I have I have 2 boxes of just Conan slabs, but with those, all the ones that are major, I have reader copies of. So I have my better version slabbed, and I have my reader copy.
Is it a fair question? What are you more apt to find a high grade of, a magazine-sized comic or a comic-sized comic?
It's been my experience because I collect a lot of the magazines.
Right.
That it's just in the condition the people who owned them kept them.
All
you
right.
never know. You never know how they stored them.
Okay, so it's no easier or
no.
more
I've
difficult
seen
to find a good condition.
Old comics come in mint at my LCS, and I've seen magazines come where they're like moth-eaten and raggy and barely held together. Yeah. And then I've seen the opposite. I've seen it flip-flop, where you get in magazines and it looks like they were never touched. They were just put in a box somewhere.
I wish I came across more magazines in the wild at LCS or cons, but I don't seem to come across them because I love the old Marvel black and whites.
They're great. Some of the old Epic magazine too is good.
Oh yes, Epic, and it was called the Marvel Marvel graphic novel. It was just it was square bound graphic novels that Marvel was putting out. I have issue 8, which was the first Starstruck.
I got quite a few of them here. I probably got about 16 or 17 of those.
Okay, yeah,
definitely all the Conan ones.
Yeah, oh yes,
Swashbucklers and stuff like that, and
those are fun for the own reason that the house ads are bigger, the letter pages are more. In fact, well, you know what? I brought one.
And of course, one of the most famous ones, right, was the X-Men God Love Man Kills.
Yes, it was. Yeah, maybe it was you, or because I just recently that crossed my radar, and I think and maybe it was you. Conversation.
I think it was John talking about it on our last show. That John was on the 1011 because it's his favorite storyline. All right, number 3, sir.
Number 3. Well, okay, number 3. As I said, I used to take a trip across town to my local comic shop, which happened to be on a college campus. So not only have I found a comic shop in the real world, but it was actually a really good comic shop, and where all the students used to go, the cool college students, to buy their indie books. And so it was there that I got introduced to the world of not Marvel and not DC early on. So I was very aware that there was a variety out there from an early age. And back in that day, the clerk who was also the manager was just excellent at taking a look at the stack of books you were buying and said, oh, if you like these, you like this and this and this and this. And so I listened to him and picked up Mage by Matt Wagner. All of a sudden, I'm not sure that's the right name, but it's Mage the Hero Discovered was the first of a trilogy. It was a 15-issue trilogy, each one. This is not that. When I started falling in love with Mage, I said, what else has he done? And the answer was Grendel. And so this is not Grendel's first appearance. This is the first appearance in his own solo book. This is Grendel number 1, preceded only by his first appearance in Comico Primer number 2, which is okay. So here's a change. Now, Comico Primer, we're grown up. There's such a thing as the internet. I could go get that, and I still consider it a grail. It's available on eBay almost every time I look, but I just don't. I don't know why. I've seen it. It's not really all that impressive. But Grendel by Matt Wagner has been a favorite character of mine for a while. If you're not familiar with him, this is Hunter Rose. He is a genius, and even though he's a businessman, he runs a syndicate. And it was his costume. He's not in it here very well. There's his mask. it was this costume that drew me to him. This ran for 3 issues. I have them all. And then it started over in a new volume starring his granddaughter. And so Grendel, he was really the only true Grendel, I guess I would say. And I don't know how to explain this perfectly, but Grendel is more of a spirit or a suggestion in a way that that the person who picks up the mask or decides to take on the persona, they just kind of get, they become obsessed. Yes. Yeah. Possessed, or certainly obsessed with the Grendel persona and just take on his role, his mantle. So I'll leave that at that.
That's come up a couple times on this show. So
is Grendel?
He's got some love out there. Or she's got some love out there. Whoever's wearing it at the time.
I would put him at well, there's never been a movie of him, but I'm almost tempted to liken him or put him in the same bucket as maybe the Crow.
Right.
Yeah, so I guess I'll leave it at that.
And definitely a cool costume design.
Yes, and that was what drew me to him. That and the fact that I like Mage, the hero discovered. First comic Mage that I ever had that had a fold out in the middle, and it was of a huge dragon. Mage is the modern day telling of Camelot.
Oh, okay, I've heard good things about that series, but never read it.
So. This is now like early 80s, and I really like my local comic shop because it's on a college campus and very indie friendly. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've always been buying Marvels and DCs too, but it's always nice to have a good indie selection to go at. Again, I'm reader driven. My clerk turned me on to this book, Saga of the Swamp Thing, and this is issue 20, the first Alan Moore issue.
Nice.
Oh, wow.
I always say this, I don't know how well known it is to folks who aren't Swamp Thing fans. A lot of people think of Swamp Thing, he's just Alec Holland who went into the swamp and came out the Swamp Thing. But at the time, this book was about ready to be canceled. So when Alan Moore was assigned to it, they didn't really know who he was yet. He had come from overseas. They knew that he had, that he'd done Marvel Man and V for Vendetta by that time, and Warrior magazine, both of those overseas. But they said, we'll give him a try over here. Let's put him on this book that's going to be canceled. So they did. And he completely upended the origin. This is where the origin of Swamp Thing is rewritten to Alan Moore standards. And just so you know, this is where we learned that this, and the issue after, this is where we learned that Swamp Thing is not Alec Holland and never was. He's an Earth elemental who thought he used to be Alec Holland. I'll just put it at that. Wow. So this is, and because this came out in 1983, I don't feel like I spoiled anything. So
right. And that would just be touching the surface anyway.
Yes, it would. So if you're not familiar with, even if you don't like Swamp Thing, that would be a classic, just 6-issue trade to go out and read. Would be, I don't remember the name of the trade. Would be Alan Moore's Swamp Thing Volume 1, because that's where they really set the course for the character today. I really liked Alan Moore.
Well, that's what put him into the skyrocket popularity, Swamp Thing.
Yes, it is. And it was weird because a different comic book company, that was DC, but a company called Eclipse got the permission to reprint what was called Marvel Man, but over here it's called Miracle Man. And that's what this is from Eclipse Comics. This came out in 85. So it was 2 years after Swamp Thing is when this started coming out. And for those who don't know, Miracle Man, his name was changed from Marvel Man for copyright reasons. Right. But Marvel Man is a superhero over in the UK that's been around since, I want to say, like the 40s. And if you recall, like Captain America might be kind of campy. We might think of some of the early adventures, in those older books to be kind of campy and rah-rah-ha, stuff. So too was Marvel Man. But like he did with Swamp Thing, Alan Moore said, no, I know what you think Marvel Man was, but that's not what Marvel Man was. And this is where we learn what Marvel Man really is, according to Alan Moore. And without giving really anything away, what he really did, he used this book, well, Marvel Man, he used as well to to look more closely at Captain Marvel, as in Shazam. And what is it that's going on when a human being says a code word and a new body appears? What is that? And in Miracle Man, he has his magic word. And when he says his magic word, he stops being down on his luck newspaper reporter. And now he's Miracle Man, who is godlike. But really what's happening behind the scenes, I'll give this little tidbit away. Michael Moran, his human form, or Billy Batson, really goes into this like null space. He's not turning into Miracle Man. He's swapping bodies with him. This is happening. And so that's how Alan Moore plays with that concept. Took the Captain Marvel concept of seeing a magic
but his
word.
Subconscious stays in whatever in the body that's in his reality, right? Or no?
No.
Okay.
So
it's a total transference.
I want to say it's more of a template. So Miracle Man knows about, yes, they are aware of each other, but it's not the same. That's all. I'll leave it at that.
Nice.
So
and that was number 5. Yeah.
This is Miracle Man number 1, which truly reprints material in the black and white magazine from Warrior magazine from the UK. But this is the first time. This is the first publication of Miracle Man, and also the first time it was in color.
And a great cover. Oh no, I was marking down here like what comic you were on. That's all.
Oh, okay, yep, and that was number 5. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, that was number 5. So number 6, Miracle Man, as of issue 17, Alan Moore stopped writing Miracle Man, and this guy named Neil Gaiman took over for him.
Never heard of him.
Yeah, I know. Well, neither had anybody else. And it wasn't until this book came out that people started paying a lot more attention to Neil Gaiman. So Sandman number 1, I was always kind of already, now he had written some other things. I don't remember the name, but it was a 3-issue prestige book for Vertigo. I think Vertigo. She's about a purple woman, and I can't remember the name of that character.
Black Orchid?
Yes. Very good. Gaiman had that series predates this. And I had read that. It couldn't have been Vertigo yet because this wasn't Vertigo yet. But Neil Gaiman was a little bit already on my roadmap. So when I started seeing house ads for Sandman in DC Comics, I was ready to pounce. I was like, save that for me. And of course, it didn't disappoint. And for a while, I had a really huge thing on Sandman where no matter what form it was published in, I was buying it, even though I already have it. So anyway, so that was a problem I've wrestled with over the years, is buying books that I still have. So, well, it sounds like you have several copies of the books as well. So
and Sandman, that's a clean copy you got there. At least it looks clean from the camera.
Yes, I would say. Yeah, I would say it's very fine to near mint for sure. I haven't seen the back of it lately.
And it also kind of set a bar for art back then too, didn't it?
Dave McKeon did those. Yes, some of this cover is actually a photograph. It's like the border itself, I think, is a photograph that he then puts an illustration inside of, or they do that, behind the scenes. But yes, and I don't know, if I'm not mistaken, I think maybe did McKeon do the whole run? I don't know. So I don't really have a setup for this one. Other than that, this is book number 7. This came out in February of '99. This is Planetary number 1.
What a nice cover that is.
Got me hooked on Warren Ellis and John Cassaday, who does all the interiors. As a result, near the end of this book's run, I don't remember how many issues, certainly into the 20s and maybe low 30s, it was coming out like only once or twice a year. It got really late. Wow. This is available, or used to be. I don't know if it's still on sale or out of print, but there's a Planetary Omnibus.
So like a Scout Comics. Yeah. You never know when the next issue's coming out.
Oh, I can't remember the name of that title that I waited for issue 5 for and didn't even read it when it finally arrived. It was I had subscribed. So this is about a group. By the way, this led me to Stormwatch too, number 37, which is where Warren Ellis took over on Stormwatch and wrote what eventually became or led up to the Authority. Although, well, anyway, this is really interesting if you're into the old pulp stories, because a lot of the issues are dedicated to old pulp stories. And if you didn't know that, you wouldn't even notice that. But I was like, this is just like so-and-so. And then later I read an article about that. And they said, sure enough, he's paying tribute to all these different famous superheroes or I shouldn't say superheroes, famous fictional characters. I want to say like Doc Savage. And I don't know who they call him here. They don't call him Doc Savage, but he's the equivalent of. They find him trapped in a cave, and he's been trapped there for like the last 50 years. You know, he's I don't want to say he's immortal, but he hasn't been killed. He's just been trapped. Anyway, he's not in the healthiest shape, but they help nurse him back to health, and he's a character for the rest of the series. So that's kind of interesting, and they do that. Ultimately, though, this is they call themselves like the archaeologists of the impossible. It's Planetary itself. It's an organization, and they're intent on discovering and exploring the world's secret history. And they're funded by a guy called the Fourth Man, and that's one of the ongoing plot throughout all the issues is who is the Fourth Man. So they go and travel the world, and they investigate strange phenomenon and monsters and aliens and unusual things that are suppressed by the military. And later, and this was really interesting, near the end of the book, they are opposed by a rival group based on the Fantastic Four. So if you want to see the Fantastic Four, I don't want to say like zombie bad, but evil, you know, or know what it's like to go up against the Fantastic
Now, how many
Four.
collected volumes? Do you know of how many collected volumes that series had?
I want to say if you bought this in individual trade form, it might only be 3, but I'm not sure that takes you to the end. I think there was like a full year between the time the penultimate issue came out and the finale came out. And I think a lot of people dropped off. As they go on about their adventures, ultimately what they're doing behind the scenes is they're just authoring a planetary guide. You know, it's kind of like, I want to say it's like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's just a guide to everything, and everything's in it. And they're the group responsible for maintaining it. And the omnibus, if you can find it, if you take the dust jacket off, it's the cover of the Planetary Guide, which is kind of
Oh wow, that's neat.
So well worth a read if you can find it. Next up, okay, this is a character that I think gets a bad name.
Was it at the truck stop at the end of the universe?
Oh,
instead of the restaurant?
7, or I don't remember. What's
42?
42. Yes.
The Babblefish.
Man, there's a lot from that.
So long, and thanks for all the fish.
You're bringing it back again.
Yeah.
So book number 8 is a book that it's a character I think gets a bad name. And I'd be curious I think what happened was they took this really good book, which was self-contained, series, I should say, that was self-contained. And they said, that was a pretty good series. Let's put this guy into the New Avengers. And that's where the downfall of this character began, because I don't think anybody knew how to handle him. So that character is the Sentry. Right? See, you're having a reaction.
Otherwise known as the asshole Superman.
Okay. Well, read this. I think this will give you a whole different perspective on the character. I can't say he's going to be, I don't think, they might have screwed the pooch or jumped the shark after this series. But this was a 5-issue series, and then it was followed immediately by 5 one-shots. And a quick description, and it's his origin. And it's about this guy. He's an alcoholic, I think. His life sucks, but he keeps getting haunted by these dreams that he's a superhero, and he remembers all these people. And how in the world can I remember all these people? And this book ends, or the very next issue begins, with him standing at the top of the crane that is working on rebuilding the Baxter building. And so the question is, how in the world does this guy with literally a bath towel taped around his shoulders, wake up at the top of the tower at the Baxter Building. How did he get? And not so much how to get up there, but the Baxter Building's the Baxter Building. They got security, and here he is, right? And so there's a neat conversation between Reed Richards and this guy standing at the top of the crane. It is a story of how this guy remembers who he used to be and how come the world forgot about him.
Oh, wow.
A man who truly is his own worst enemy.
Yeah, he really is. And by the end of that series, it was done. And I was thinking, it's done. You know, they can't bring him back because of the way this has ended. He doesn't die, but, you know, I don't want to give very much away. It's such an intriguing story to me. And Paul Jenkins wrote it. I think it was Jay Lee drew it. Hey, it sounds like I agree with you guys. They did a great disservice to that character, but his origins were really good.
Who did a great disservice to that character was Null.
Oh, yes. See, yes. Now there were a couple Century minis. He came back in the New Avengers by Bendis. Bendis brought him back, and I think even Bendis didn't know what to do with him. And then you're right. And then there was and for whatever reason, he left the Avengers. Did he die in the Avengers eventually? I'm not sure. Obviously, though, he comes back for Null. Doesn't he tear something in half in that series?
No, Null tears him in half.
Oh,
yeah, he's torn. He's split in half. Yeah.
Okay.
Much like Carnage was torn in half at one point.
All right. Yeah, and I'm like, I think in a way, because I don't know, maybe he truly is the most powerful character in the Marvel universe. I'm not sure. I think it's like it's hard to write Superman because what can hurt Superman? You know, that's lasting. And I think in a way, because he is his own worst enemy, he's wink, 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 nudge, nudge. Right. That makes him a challenge to write.
Kelly's saying the Void.
Yes. Yep. Yes. The Void is his enemy, and the Void is equally as impressive, but just not in the right way. So that was September 2000. The next, I mentioned Bendis. If this book made me a Jessica Jones fan, and I'm pretty sure she didn't exist until this book. This is Alias #1, not to be confused with the Jennifer Garner TV show.
Right.
This came out in November of 2001, and it hooked me instantly. This was going on in a time of the Marvel Universe where I don't think people knew Steve Rogers was Captain America. The only reason I say that is because Jessica Jones is hired to find a woman's daughter. And it turns out that woman is fine. She's just dating someone. She's got a boyfriend, and she isn't telling her mom about it.
Interestingly, that is the first full appearance.
Yeah.
But the first cameo appearance of Jessica Jones is actually all the way back in Amazing Spider-Man issue 4.
As I don't remember her name now.
She's a spectator of Sandman versus
Did they
Spider-Man
retrofit
fight.
that? Did they retrofit that, or was that always?
Yeah, according to the notes here, it says it's kind of retcon revealed.
Oh, okay.
Back in ASM 601,
yes,
they wrote that in apparently according to the everybody's favorite online comic book Bible, Key Collector.
How about see, I go through Cover Price. Which partnered with them.
Yeah.
I haven't looked there that though.
And I use CLZ a lot too, but sometimes it's when you're searching for something you don't have in your PC or you don't know right away. Sometimes it's easy to a quick database, but
yes.
Otherwise, yes, Alias would be the.
Well, it turns out, and I'm going to spoil this because this book's been out for a while. It turns out that when Jessica Jones, former Avenger, and we also find out how horrible the Purple Man is in a way that you never find out in the TV show. She discovers that the daughter whose mom hired Jessica to find her is dating Steve Rogers. And so Jessica's outside doing her detective thing. She sees the boyfriend leave, but instead of the boyfriend like walking down the street going away somewhere, he like ducks behind the house, and up pops Captain America, and Jessica Jones is going. And it ends up the following issue. She thinks she's in fear for her life because she now knows the secret identity of an Avenger, and she used to be one, so she knows the severity of that. And so for a minute, also, I think Alias is a really good series for learning about Carol Danvers, because she and Jessica are friends in that book. And I don't think, and you do, well, and so from time to time we see them just having lunch together. And I remember at least one of those scenes, all of a sudden, Carol gets a call and has to go zooming off to do a superhero thing. But it's like you get to see Carol Danvers as a regular person talking with her friend.
You get to see her do that a lot with Jessica Drew as well, who's her best friend. So they have a lot of scenes with them where they're just talking, or Jessica's asking Carol to take care of Roger for her son. I mean Jerry, take care of her son. Jerry.
Okay. See, and her son wasn't born yet in this series. I believe I'm not even sure if she meets Nick Cage in this series. I don't recall. That might have been
not Jessica Jones. Spider-Woman. Jessica Drew is best friends with Carol Danvers.
Okay. Oh, I would like to see more of that. Bendis did something in New Avengers where Jessica Drew and Hawkeye were having a flirtation for a minute, and I just thought those were hilarious scenes, the way he wrote them.
I think they had a great moment, and I'm only interrupt you for a second, which was hilarious. In that new Avengers run back then, where every guy on the Avengers team was just enraptured with Jessica Drew, but she had the pheromones, and she was using her pheromones to have the Hulk make her sandwiches.
Oh, that's funny.
So you had the big Hulk in the kitchen making her sandwich and bringing it to her.
Oh man. See, I have to say, I'm not really, Bendis doesn't turn my head anymore. But back in the day, I used to really like some of Bendis' stuff. Specifically, I like the way he writes women's dialogue. It makes me wonder if he's using a lot from his wife for things like that. So moving from Alias, number 10, we're going to flash forward like a decade. And one of my favorite writers is Matt Kent. And it's all because of this book, Mind Management. Mind Management has a first appearance. I forget the title, but it's just a short little story. Oh my gosh, I love this book. This is about it's a main character. Her name is Maru, and she's a true crime writer. But this story begins where she is investigating a flight. It's the anniversary of this flight. That when it landed, the entire passenger plane, the pilots, everyone, had amnesia. Wow. So husbands didn't recognize their wives. It was really kind of tragic because, parents didn't remember their children, that kind of thing. And she's investigating the amnesia flight. But the thing about the amnesia flight is that there was one passenger that was unaccounted for on the flight manifest. And his name is Henry Lime. And so this is about Maru, who goes searching for Henry Lime, and she discovers a secret organization known as Mind Management. And just to give you an example of what Mind Management can do, they have a department that is responsible for the weaponization of advertisements. Also, Mind Management is an old organization, like Illuminati old. And so they wanted to kill a political figure. And so what they did was they found the route that he walked to work, and they just peppered advertisements along the way, Mind Management advertisements along the way. And within a couple of weeks, he died of a brain aneurysm.
Wow.
That's how they assassinated him.
Kind of sounds like Ray Live stuff, where they look up and they see all the signs we get.
Oh, well, yes, that's a good cousin to that. Yes. So we have, yes, it is full of really, I call it science fiction spy stories.
Right.
Because the abilities that the spies have, they're like superpowers, but they're not like any superpower that we've read about before. It's like the ad man who can create ads, right? That will kill you, that kind of thing. So that's just, oh my gosh. And Matt Kint peppers little messages around the borders of the page. Each issue starts with just a one-page comic that seems unrelated to the story you're about to get. And then there's another one at the end that's a continuation, and you realize how much related that really was to the story that you got.
Wow.
It's just Matt Kint is one of the most clever story writers that I've encountered in a long time. And that was the book that turned me on to it. And that was number 10.
Yeah. So now number 11 with a personal story attached.
So in 1979, and I've told this before, but in 1979, Howard the Duck number 1 came out. This is not the book I'm going to bring to your attention, but Howard the Duck magazine, black and white magazine,
right.
number 1 came out. This is kind of like an anthology magazine of Howard the Duck stories.
Oh, you're making Katie jealous right now. She's a big Howard the Duck.
Oh, well then, here will be a reason to go looking through this next issue then if you have it. So there was no such thing as email yet or the interwebs yet. So I got out my mom's typewriter and typed a fan letter to Howard the Duck magazine number 1. And wouldn't you know it, my letter is published in issue number 3.
Oh, wow.
So on the letters page of this, now in between, I can't believe I threw this away, but it was because I really didn't know what it was. Quite a while passed between the time I sent the letter in and the time this issue came out. And somewhere in between, this is all snail mail days, somewhere in between, I got a postcard, and it had a Marvel Comics stamp on it. I shouldn't say a stamp. It was stamped Marvel Comics. So I knew it was from Marvel, and it had some scribbling on it and the word Mantlo. But that's all it was. And it had been long enough that I had forgotten I had written this letter. And then long enough again that this issue actually came out. So I no longer have that. But I suspect what it was Bill Mantlo, the editor, kind of, I don't know, thanking me or acknowledging me that I had written this letter. So here on Wisecracks, which is their letter column, my letter is right here. And I'm not going to hold that too close because my entire name and address are there. This is where I lived in, I don't know, 9th grade. I don't live there anymore. But there's a change, think of how the times change. Here they are printing my entire findable information.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Here's a kid. Let me publish his address.
So
where he's at.
If you want to
don't go look for him.
Yeah. Right now, I guess if you were to buy this and you want to go put a plaque out front of whoever's house that is now, that Phil used to live there, well, then you may. But anyway, Howard the Duck magazine number 3, I actually got a letter printed.
Very cool.
For all time's sake.
Now when the white van pulls up in front of your house, they can say, "Hey, kid, I got comics."
Yeah,
they know that you're into comics already. They know where you're at.
Want to see your name in a magazine?
Right. I'd be like the jerk, except with comics.
I got a real duck. You want to come see the duck?
He hates these comics.
So that is number 11. That's my story.
It's a fun story.
And then lastly,
your
spec time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I wasn't sure this was still spec worthy. And I was, and it got me thinking about spec too. It's like, and this is just my definition, and I'm not dogging on spec. Everybody loves to collect what they love to collect and how they collect it, right? So, but for me, speculation is when I buy a comic that I don't really care about. I'm buying it anyway, though, because I think it might be worth something someday. And lately, when I moved, I got rid of easily 20 short boxes to my LCS at like $25 a pop per box. Just stuff. I didn't care about it anymore. It was dead spec at best, and certainly not worth the time to put it on eBay. And that was kind of an eye-opener for me about what I now maybe find valuable or worthy of keeping. It's not just a monetary thing. But I'm doing a lot less spec because I just got Tim giving away a bunch of spec, dead spec. Or when I buy more than one copy of the same book, that's sometimes a spec, right?
Right.
And again, nothing wrong with spec, but it's just kind of made me reevaluate what I buy and what I keep, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, so all that to say, I'm really lucky that I love most of the books that I own. So it doesn't matter if they're worthless, as
Right.
far as,
You love them.
yeah. I got a big book of, novel or a bookcase of novels too that I'm never going to throw away. So anyway,
VHS tapes and freaking
this. So it's always kind of cool when the books you love and don't care about their value take off. That's always nice as well. It's in a way, it's kind of like I'm validated.
Right.
Look
so
how smart I was.
Yeah, right. Yes, I bought this when it came out for cover price.
I totally planned it.
Yes, right. Yeah, yes.
Joe,
boy, if that were true, I wouldn't have
Anachronic Comic had the best spec game of any of us because he planned so many amazing books that he's held on to since he was a young lad.
And only paid 2 cents a book.
That's right.
Totally ripped his friend off.
Oh man. Okay.
What a speculator that guy was.
Well, if you buy one of everything. I used to work at a comic shop, and we had a customer that bought one of everything. Everything we got, we stuck a copy away for him. I have no idea what he did for a living. Probably he rented storage space for a living.
Exactly.
So anyway, this is a book where I just loved the story and the premise. It's a newer book. It's by Jeff Lemire. But I made notes here. This was originally... says in April of 2021, Legendary Entertainment's option on this series was passed, and Lemire was looking for a new home for it. But when I was researching this to see if it had found a new home, I think the answer is Netflix. But Lemire I got the impression from the article read that Lemire got in a little bit of trouble for letting some information out early. And all he has said recently was that things are happening. The book is Black Hammer. This is issue 1. Black Hammer, I would say, is composed of 3 main volumes, each of them 12 or 13 issue long, and a ton of spin-offs, which highlight certain characters in current day or favorite characters, flashback kind of story. But if it sticks around what the original plan was, Black Hammer not only is going to be on Netflix, but there are also like spin-off deals. If there needs to be a movie or two in a theater, that will happen.
Wow.
And the world is certainly large enough to support all that, if audience reaction is good. So this is my spec pick. I went and looked. There are 4 covers of issue number 1. This is the A cover. These are all relatively affordable. B cover. This was a convention exclusive. This is the San Diego Comic-Con Fabio variant from 2016. Well, you know what? I'm wondering now. Yeah. And this is the hard one to get. Don't pay more than $200 for this. And if you can, and you probably can find it better. This is the toughie. Well, it's not tough. There were several on eBay.
Wow.
And this has a big ding that hides well, but it's there when you look.
She sits on a pointed roof with her legs out like that.
And this is an interesting character. All of a sudden, her name is scared. She's trapped. This is like a 30-year-old woman trapped in the body of a prepubescent girl. The storyline, the basic premise of the first volume is that, picture your favorite Marvel battle, your favorite DC battle, the finale where the big shebang is happening, like the end of the Avengers as they're fighting Thanos. There's always huge explosions and whatever. Well, this group of superheroes has that battle, and there's a huge explosion, and when the smoke dissipates, the heroes are gone. And so they're presumed dead. And this book begins 10 years later, when unbeknownst to the rest of the world, our heroes are trapped on this tiny town, and they live on a farm. and it's 10 years later, so they've given up trying to find a way out of this place that they're trapped in, this simple little town, and they live on the farm. And so the book is really about how they got there, how come the world thinks they're dead, and actually a couple of them are trying to figure out what went on. So if it's at all possible,
good little
they can
mystery.
get back to our world. Yeah, and so that's the premise of Black Hammer. Black Hammer was the name of a hero, one of the group. There's 6 of them all together, and yeah, so I can see it does make for franchise material. I don't know, there's maybe such a thing as superhero burnout in the Hollywood industry right now. So, but I guess this would be a Netflix series. So I guess maybe it all remains to be seen. A, if it'll be seen, and B, if they do it well. Although now Lemire's got enough things that are on. I'm trying to think of The Kid with the Antlers. What's that series?
Oh, Sweet Tooth.
Yes. So he's got the chops for writing for television, or television thinks he has the chops. So maybe this could happen. That's my spec pick. Black Hammer #1.
Nice. Good pick. Wow. All right, nice books, Phil. Thank you so much.
Thank you for letting me share them.
Oh, yeah. It's fun seeing them, some of the different ones, and getting some of the history on them. Planetary is one I might seek out for sure.
Oh, that's a fun one. That's worthy of a reread that I should put in my reread stack.
Always love Marvel Team Up. The old John Carter covers are amazing from then, and just so good. The Miracle Man I didn't know about. That was interesting. Like I didn't know his premise. I mean, the art's cool, it's a nice cover, but.
And Grendel's one where I've picked up books in the past. The characters always, I remember all the way back into the 90s, I remember the character design always was really interesting. And I've picked up a few books, but honestly, I've never bothered to crack one open and read it.
And I'm not sure how. It's been a long time since I've read them, but I'm not. Obviously, they did. I wanted to say they went in like 40 or 50 issues and mini series, but I'm not sure how it would be to jump into that book at the beginning of an arc, because a lot of the arcs start with a new Grendel persona, a new person in the Grendel role. So I wouldn't know what that experience would be like.
Joe, nice books, but now I have to buy Planetary. I hate it. So, Joe, while he was talking, I looked it up. There's a Planetary omnibus, Joe, so you can get the omnibus.
And you guys can share it.
Oh goodness!
That's how I feel on my other show too. Is all the time somebody's pulling stuff out. Next thing you know, your list of wants gets longer and longer.
Yep.
Well, while we're talking about that, Rob, what's coming up for you, sir?
Well, actually, not a lot this week, because this is my week that I take This is my bye week when it comes to Only Slabs. Got my big barbecue that I do annually. We have a bunch of people cook up a couple 100 pounds of meat and call it a day. But I will return next week with Only Slabs. We will have Adrian APM will be joining us as our guest. Other than that, I will have there's two $25 mystery boxes that'll drop on Thursday from T. Ravis Comics. I honestly didn't know that a $25 mystery box could be this damn cool.
Oh, that's neat. I like some of the books that he shows on in the background.
Yeah, I've bought a lot of stuff from him before, but there wasn't a lot of information on this. I don't want to spoil the video, but I wasn't a lot of information, and I was like surprised when I opened it and thought, wow, this was actually a much better concept and way to do a mystery box than at that price point. I mean, I was just saying, it was like there were 2 books in each mystery box. That's it.
Oh.
So instead of getting for $25, my Scotch shipping, getting a bunch of dollar books, instead you got 2 good books.
That's neat. So you're still getting your money's worth, and it's still a mystery.
All four books were keys.
Nice.
Out of 2 mystery boxes. So yeah, a lot of fun.
Will you do that again then with him?
Yeah, I probably would. It was definitely probably the best way to do a mystery box at that price point that never crossed my mind.
Okay. Well, that's a nice vote.
Now, coming up for me, so on Thursday night, we have another episode of the 1011. This is going to be the makeup episode for Who Dat, who had a storm going through where he was the night he was supposed to be on. So he was having all sorts of issues. So we rescheduled it. So in 2 nights, we'll have Who Dat Comics on, and we'll get to see what he's got. Then you can catch me on Saturday at 4:30 MST or 7:30 a.m. Eastern on Coffee and Cosplay with Stephanie on her channel at Madam Blaster. So I am a regular on there now, so you will see me there every Saturday with her. And
what are you cosplaying as this week, Gary?
Huh?
What are you cosplaying as this week, Gary?
I was just going to say that this week is Black Cat Week.
You're dressed up as Black Cat. Very impressive.
Yep.
No. Gary said it. He's going to be Black Cat. Make sure you guys tune in to see Gary as Black Cat. This will be on Madam Blaster's channel. Be sure to be there. I'm sure it's going to be fabulous, Gary.
Meow.
You go, Felicia.
But she's got a new Black Cat cosplay, which is really cool. Looks nice. You guys will love it. We're going to have 5 fun facts about the Black Cat. We're going to have 2 trivia questions, one at the beginning of the show for the early birds, one at the end of the show, which gives the people watching an opportunity to get their name on a wooden clothespin, which goes into a drawing at the end of the month, every month. And whoever's name gets drawn from the shows we do, they get a custom portrait sketch from her of whoever they want.
Oh, that's cool.
And she does great sketches. Rob and I can both tell you we're both sketched by her, as is Matt Wood's comics.
Compete so I can get a sketch from her of Gary as Black Cat.
Well, you got to watch and participate for that, Rob. Right? But so we got some segments worked out that we're doing. The show's really fun. And then the week after that, because this week is going by quick, we will have. Oh, I got out of my calendar. So we have. Oh, that's right. We have Steve White on August 1st coming up, and we have Milt on the 25th from Flower Comics on the 1011. And we're going to have a special show coming up on a Friday night next month with some of the Aussie boys that do toys, Keep on Collecting and Scott Crusher. So they're going to come back on my channel again. I've had them on before. Super nice dudes, and we're just going to do something a little different. We're going to talk about their top 3 toys that they bought that year and what they're looking forward to getting that's coming out.
Wow, that sounds to me, Gary, since like nobody could possibly remember all of that they should just hit that notification bell right there at the bottom there. So that way they can be just told when you're on and they can pay attention.
All right, and so our last but not least, what's coming up for you, Phil?
Well, this coming Sunday, 4:00 in the afternoon, we have the next episode of Treehouse Trivia. J2 from the low grades is going up against Lady F. And on Treehouse Trivia, the contestants don't win the prizes. They are each assigned to an audience member. So when a contestant wins, they're really winning a prize for that audience member. So
he's going against Caroline?
Yep, Caroline and
bastard.
J2.
That poor bastard.
I still got to write the questions, so I'm going to be busy between now and then.
If you want him to have a chance, don't make him any X-Men questions because Caroline will know them all.
Okay, duly noted. I'm not giving her any horror movie questions, so that's J2's specialty.
Nice. No, that'll be a great show. Caroline's a great personality. I love Caroline.
Give her a bunch
good stuff. All right. And as I like to always do, thank you so much to the crowd. We had a great crowd watching tonight, here to support you, Phil, and watch you on the show. Rob, thank you as always for being my wingman. Really appreciate you, bud. And Phil, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having me. Had a great time.
You were so nice. I reached out. You got back to me right away, and I really appreciate it.
And now my comics are organized.
There you go. Until next time, right?
Right. I got to put these all away.
Luckily, you only got 3 slabs, so Rob can't abuse you like I did. All right, guys. But until next time, thank you all so much, and keep it casual. And where's my, there it is.